Joining me now is Cody Benjamin, writer for CBSSports.com. He covers the NFL extensively. And I got to start with this Tim Tebow story. I am a Florida alum, so I am squarely in Tim Tebow's corner. I've been with him throughout every chapter of this insane journey. But this last one, Cody, I'm having trouble justifying what Jacksonville's trying to do here, giving Tim Tebow a shot. What do you think the motivation is from Jacksonville here?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, first of all. It's obviously the talk of the NFL, and it's, as always with Tim Tebow, it's somehow polarizing. I think that there's no disputing that, Tim Tebow is he's a good guy, at least from what people have, people that have played with him, coached him, done a lot of stuff off the field. And he's had one of the most unusual sports journeys of probably any athlete. I mean, you don't often see a guy, first-round quarterback becoming a minor league baseball player, coming back 8 years later to play football. But yeah, from purely a football standpoint, from the Jaguars' perspective, it's hard to view it as more than Urban Meyer kind of, giving an old friend, an old, pupil of his a chance to play football again, or just kind of put some tape on, out there as a tight end. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, if he would have switched to tight end, some people probably would have been talking about it as a legitimate thing. But that didn't happen. It's, Tim Tebow hasn't taken an NFL snap in a real game since 2012. And it's just, if you just look at who played in the NFL in 2012, it's crazy how much time has passed. So yeah, from purely a football perspective, you just can't expect anything more than kind of a publicity show this summer and this fall. But I think, whether people like it or not, it would be kind of fun to see Tim Tebow actually catching passes in an NFL game this fall, at least from my opinion.
Yeah, listen, it's a great headline, but I do understand that the reaction has been mixed from inside the league and prominent figures from around the league, some of who feel like, actually, wait a minute, whether or not it's referencing Colin Kaepernick or whether it's just the amount of time that's passed since he's been in the league. There are some detractors who say, maybe this isn't fair. You're actually taking an opportunity, a coveted opportunity, away from somebody else that might be more deserving. I mean, is there any merit to that?
A little bit. I mean, I kind of fall in the middle. I mean, I don't want to give a cop-out answer, but I mean, I can understand the difference, between a guy like, if his name was different, if his name wasn't Tim Tebow, would he be getting the opportunity? Obviously not. I mean, he knows Urban Meyer. I mean, he's Tim Tebow. He had a history with Urban Meyer at Florida. Now, does that give him an unfair advantage? I mean, on one hand, you could say that's how the world works. I mean, you make relationships with people and you have connections because of that. Obviously, there's an unfair advantage there to some degree, but part of it is just, if he really is brought in as competition for a number 3 tight end position, there's not much you can complain about, just because in reality, the chances of him actually making a team, stealing somebody's job are probably low. I think that, there's differences between the Colin Kaepernick situation. Obviously, there have been many other examples before Tim Tebow where you could have justified Colin Kaepernick being signed over, name your random third-string quarterback that got a job after maybe not deserving it. So, yes, you could make that, but I think there's a difference there too. We don't have to go too deep on that, but obviously, Tim Tebow, like Colin Kaepernick, wanted to play quarterback for the longest time. Refused to kind of give up that opportunity. And I don't think Colin Kaepernick should have to switch to tight end to play football, but there's a difference there. I just think, it's getting a lot of buzz now, but if you're a Jaguars fan, the thing you should be most excited about is Trevor Lawrence and the rest of the pieces there in Jacksonville.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've maintained, Cody, that Colin Kaepernick's vocation somewhere along the way in the last couple of years has switched to advocating for social justice and away from wanting to play football. So I definitely note the nuance and the differences there. More so just saying, hey, he's Tim Tebow, does he deserve this shot? Some people are saying no. But I think you bring up a good point with Trevor Lawrence. And that's another piece of this too, maybe, because of Tebow's relationship with Urban Meyer and And because of how fruitful that partnership was at the University of Florida, is it outside the realm of possibility to consider that there might be a mentorship angle here as he brings in one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, and maybe there could be a little bit of benefit there? Or with him moving to the tight end position, does he kind of take himself out of that mentoring equation?
Yeah, it's another one where you can see both sides. I mean, is Tim Tebow, when he sits down in a room with Trevor Lawrence or other teammates, is he going to be a good influence? I mean, history says probably. Yeah, I think it'd be hard not to maybe get along with Tim Tebow. But others have floated the idea, and I think it does have merit, that, usually good players end up being the real influencers in the locker room. You can have guys that are reserves and they bring obviously important character pieces to a locker room. But at the end of the day, if it's a random, it's a third string tight end, the backup offensive lineman who never sees the field, usually they're not holding sway over the team. And so this is Trevor Lawrence's team. Some have suggested that maybe this is a way for Urban Meyer to pull attention off of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that'd be quite the, unorthodox strategy for a first-year head coach. But yeah, I think it's possible he could be an influence, but I think that's really almost what it has to be, partly because, Tim Tebow's never caught a pass as an NFL tight end. And so everyone's trying to figure it out.
No, it's interesting. I think maybe there might be something to that. I certainly wouldn't put it past Urban Meyer to try to deflect some of the pressure and attention off of Trevor Lawrence, especially coming off of such an unusual year in college, maybe giving him a little bit of room to breathe. I don't know how long that will last. I think maybe the circus will come into town and leave town, but we'll have to see. It's a phenomenal story either way, like you said. And for me, it makes it exciting because it's just another great storyline heading into a really unusual season, an exciting season. But have a couple minutes left of the year. So wanted to ask you about DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf, Seattle's receiver, trying to go for the Olympic team, really showing his stuff as a sprinter, unfortunately kind of just making the cut to make Olympic trials. So his Olympic dream falling short. But what's the reaction been like in terms of how well he actually stacked up competition?
Yeah, I think the reaction has been almost unanimously supportive of what he's doing. To be honest, I was surprised that the Seahawks didn't try and put a stop to him running on the track. I mean, that's a big, he took care of himself, obviously. He's in great shape. But, I think, obviously he finished 10th in his race, which was not good enough to qualify for Olympic trials. But you just look at him next to those other runners, and it's clear that you're dealing with a different physical specimen there. I mean, a lot of these sprinters, they're not, bulging with size because he's built like, he's one of the most physically imposing NFL wide receivers. And for him to take that size and then stay, right in the mix with those sprinters, I think is impressive. And I honestly wonder if it will open the door a little bit to future endeavors from other NFL players in things like this. I mean, you think about guys like Tyreek Hill, other guys that have done track and field or could do it. Again, I don't know that teams are going to be elated about letting their players go do this, but could certainly see it opening some doors.
Did it underscore for you just the difference in athleticism? You mentioned, his build, and honestly, even finishing in 10th place with just the margins being so small between the times, it was so impressive to see him hang with some of these other guys. I mean, but, did you take away from it the fact that, like, listen, NFL strength, size, speed, what have you, is just not on the same par as, track speed and size?
Yeah, for sure. And I think DK said that himself. He was asked, after the race, and he talked about how there's a difference between football speed and track speed. And, he was there, he hung with them, but obviously it's a whole different ballgame. I also think that it speaks to the level of athleticism that's in the NFL today. I mean, while he wasn't Olympic trial worthy, he was worthy enough to be on that same track. And so I think, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it would have been incredibly rare to find a guy of DK Metcalf's size, running that well with those sprinters. And so, not everyone DK Metcalf's size can do that. And that's why he's DK Metcalf. He's the only one that's himself. But I think it does speak to the, just the increasing talent at the NFL level.
Should NFL teams shy away from eye-catching endeavors like this, for lack of a better term? I mean, this was trending so heavily digitally, just a story that so many people were really interested in and curious about. There is a lot of money at stake, and there's certainly the health factor at stake. But, moving forward, just with the age that we live in, should NFL teams open themselves up maybe to the possibility of their players getting involved in other athletic endeavors, or is that not a wise play?
I think it sounds like it for players. I mean, from the players' perspective, yeah, I think they'd vouch for anything like that. I mean, I know a few years ago there was an event that was marketed for NFL players and with former players that they claimed to try and have a speed competition, like a big 40-yard dash. And yeah, I think that from the players' perspective, stuff like that is fun. I mean, I'm sure, it got DK Metcalf some attention. It got him support from the Olympic trial, the people that put that on, and I'm sure maybe he'll get some added endorsements from that. But from the team perspective, it was viral for a few days, but I think the Seahawks would probably rest easier at night knowing that DK Metcalf wasn't, sprinting on a track, where there's added risk for injury. Again, I mean, could you be a little too paranoid there? Sure, but I think it's more likely the players would vouch for that.
Yeah, with the money at stake, maybe err on the side of caution. Before I let you go, did want to touch on a piece that you have coming up. You've been working on an NFC East preview of sorts and making the case that particular division could be a whole lot better heading into next football season. Honestly, I'm not sure how it could be much more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you think that not only will it be better, it might go from worst to best?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it right now above like the NFC West, where, any one of Arizona, San Francisco, Seattle, I think any of those teams could make a deep playoff run as of right now. So I wouldn't put them above them. But yeah, you're right. I think it's going to be hard for any of them to be as bad as they were last year, or all of them to be as bad as they were. But if you just look up and down each team, and the NFC East has been up for grabs for a long time. There hasn't been a repeat champion since, I think, 2001 through 4. The Eagles. But if you look at them, I mean, Washington, they won the division last year. I think they upgraded at quarterback with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Their ceiling is at least higher. You look at the Giants, they've got some questions, but they've added talent for Daniel Jones. I mean, Kenny Golladay, they've added some playmakers there. Dallas, if Dak Prescott stays healthy, they should have one of the best offenses in the NFL. And the Eagles, I mean, winning 4 games last year, you alienated your quarterback, fired your coach. It's going to be hard not to clear the bar that they set last year. And Jalen Hurts, even if he's more good than great, he'll have a healthier offensive line. He'll have a new number 1 wide receiver in Devontae Smith. I just see I could easily envision it coming down to the end of the season where we're talking about 2 or 3 of those teams being in the playoff mix.
Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports, CBSSports.com, covering the NFL. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.